Welcome to Roll, Ponder, and Play, a podcast dedicated to crafting stories through the application of role-playing game engines, combined with creative thinking and propelled into the ether by the barest of prompts. I'm Jared Hess, taking on all the roles of Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. Come with me on a journey, and together let us explore realms of shadow, danger, and wonder. One roll can decide the fate of many things. Welcome to episode 33 of the Queen of Shadows podcast on Roll, Ponder, and Play. I'm Jared Hess, Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. In our previous episode, Eilwen and Valeri continue their talk around the campfire, with only Eilwen and the silent forest trees for spectators. Valeri opens up about her purpose in coming to these lands. She seeks an ancient treasure to buy the freedom of her husband Edyard and her eldest son Gethyd, who are both thralls to Yormid, leader of Redhall Circle, working in his mines, seeking for black iron. In Starlight and Firelight, Valeri shares an old treasure map her husband had found months ago. Along one edge of the vellum sheet, Eilwen picks out some blocky runes she can read and manages to memorize the characters before Valeri puts the sheet away. The map also features the Greenhome, the ruined palace of queens that Valeri had just left, a region no doubt now crawling with the varou that have ever dogged their heels these last several days. It is there that Valeri seeks to find her liberating treasure. Eilwen, bearing the only treasure she had found in those ruins, the amulet of queens upon her breast, attempts to convince Valeri that it's too dangerous, that it would be suicide to attempt entering those lands. When Valeri is near sinking into despair, having lost one son to death and another son and her very husband nearly lost to permanent slavery, Eilwen offers to help Valeri free her family. Valeri is grateful for her aid and tells Eilwen that she is not like Arwed, her mother. When the others are asleep, Eilwen ponders the runes she memorized by the fire and finds out they are in verse form and contain a clue that urges her to seek the lost crown half in a low region upon the earth in some brackish swamp or fen. Eilwen also ponders about Valeri's affirmation that Eilwen is not like Eilwen's mother, and wonders if need had turned mother from innocence into the cruel woman Valeri had known. Eilwen also justifies her use of the shadow magic, and decides that she is queen of the living and queen of the shadows, and what harm is there for a queen to use the tools she has been given to regain and protect her kingdom. As we begin this episode, Eilwen's stats are Edge 2, Heart 1, Iron 1, Shadow 3, Wits 2. Current assets: Archer, initial box; Cutthroat, initial box; Shadow Walk, initial box. Current statuses: Supply 4 out of 5, Spirit 1 out of 5, Health 5 out of 5, Momentum 1 out of 10. Current debilities: none. Failure track 7 out of 24. Current unspent XP 3. And now, on to episode 33 of Queen of Shadows. Amidst the forest sounds and the soft popping of the burning wood from the campfire with its honeyed light, the river churned a distant rushing in the depths of the ravine, a backdrop to Eilwen's deep sleep, where memories of hunting with father and Aaron, or cooking with mother, surfaced in the strange, half-remembered consciousness of dream state. Okay, let's see if camping remains a positive experience for them all. We're going to jump right in with a make camp move here. And I'm rolling the action dice plus their supply of 4. I've got a 4 on the action dice plus 4 is an 8 against a 3 and a 3 on the challenge dice for, oh yeah, a strong hit with a positive match. She will take +1 spirit, now 2 out of 5, and momentum +1, now 2 out of 10. Eilwen remembered Father's strong but gentle hands over her own, rough, calloused fingers guiding her smaller child's hands. She remembered him showing her how to hold the bone-handled blade he had made for her, how to fletch an arrow, how to shoot a target, how to trap and skin a rabbit, how to recognize the teardrop-shaped tracks and deer hooves in the snow. Memories of home, of stepping through the doorway and seeing Mother dancing with Father, their lips touching in a warm fire's glow, oblivious to her, their eyes only for each other. A memory of love and joy and safety, rare gifts indeed in the Ironlands. They slept well, passing watches through the night. The rushing of the river far below and the deep ravine made it easy for Eilwen to sleep. And when the morrow dawned, her heart felt lighter. After a breakfast of hard bread, cheese, and jerky, they pressed on along their southerly route toward High Crag and Blackcairn. Do Valeri and her children come with them? I'll say because of the conversation they had last night, and also that strong match we had, that it is likely. And on an 8, I get a yes. Valeri and her children joined them south. Scratch scampered alongside them, hissing at the children and giving what sounded to Eilwen like a half-hissing, half-snorting laugh when they cried out in fear. Scratch clambered up a small rise and looked down below him. Eilwen saw him perhaps 20 paces above her, hissing down at them from his perch. She raised one fist, beckoning to him like she would a fowl when hawking. Then, with a hiss and a cry, Scratch spread his wings and leaped into the skies. And fell like a rock. Tumbling and spinning in the wind at the last second, his wings caught the air, where he half glided, half crashed, skidded into a tree trunk near Aaron. Eilwen laughed for joy and threw Scratch some jerky. Aaron grumbled something about pets running amok and increased his marching pace, leading the way. I think we're actually close to reaching our journey objective, so instead of continuing our journey, I will do the reach your destination move to end my journey. We have on our progress track 8 out of 10 boxes, and now I need to roll the challenge dice and compare against that progress. I got a 10, oh no, and a 3 on the challenge dice, so at least a weak hit. It says on a weak hit, you arrive but face an unforeseen hazard or complication. Envision what you find. They had left the valley 2 days back, cutting west along the ruined road that followed the bend of the mountain. Then the road turned south along a series of grassy steps. They were still in the Tempest Hills, though elevation continued to drop, and below them to the south, the grass-covered steppes and plateaus dropped away, revealing the hinterlands, a region of hills and steep forests, with the occasional mountain peak rising above the forested swath of land that stretched far, far to the south. The mountain they had kept on their right eventually seemed to dive into the earth like some massive creature, the waves of its passing resulting in fractured cliffs and scree and rocks and steep forested valleys filled with gaggles of scrub oak, streaks of silvered aspens, and dark swaths of conifers. The faint road they followed headed west, cutting down in elevation before slowly climbing back up toward Long Falls and then High Crag. At last, they reached Long Falls, so named for a river fed by mountains further to the north, that ran north to south in a large grass-covered meadow, high above them, and at the southern lip of the flat plain, the flow was split by a large jutting rock. This resulted in twin streams of water that cascaded in a rushing fall of sparkling moisture from the tall cliff. The droplets fell like scintillating diamonds in the setting sun's light, resulting in a beautiful rainbow backdrop by the sun's liquid golden orb that caught the clouds on fire, resulting in sheets of tangerine and rose petal red. Eilwen felt the cool mist hit her in the orange light and breathed in the humid, refreshing air. Rare indeed had been the days when she and Aaron had seen flowing water in the Veiled Mountains. And so here, the molten light from the sunset and the diamond drops of water that danced upon the pool's shimmering surface held her fancy for many long moments. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "I've seen waterfalls before, but this one, with the sunset..." Her voice trailed off in nameless awe. The majesty was short-lived, though, when Scratch, half honking and hissing with obvious joy, splashed through the edge of the shimmering pool at a full run, sending a spray of cold water arcing over them all. The girls and Valeri giggled, but Aaron, his face darkened with anger, fell to cursing, wiping water from his face and beard. He eyed the now not-so-small creature with venom. He then picked up a stone and chucked it at Scratch. It bounced off the creature's scales, and Scratch hissed at the affront, and then charged on ahead, heedless of the dark gaze that followed him. As they crested a rise, Eilwen saw the settlement of Longfalls spread out below her in a grassy bowl, with sparse copses of aspens and pines dotting the region. Sheep and goats and horses grazed on the grasses. The homes were made of wood arranged haphazardly, as if they were play blocks of a giant toddler who had decided to cast them upon the green. Cook fires spat up gray smoke into the dying light. Scratch was now simply too big to hide, and when she tried to explain that he should stay out of the settlement, he just looked at her. "Stay," she said, holding her palm out towards the wyvern. It only snuffed her hand and then about her person, seeking the jerky it so very much enjoyed. "No, stay." Scratch quizzically looked up at her, not comprehending, and followed after her when they moved on. Aaron gave her an "I told you so" look, and shook his head, striding on ahead. As they continued towards Longfalls, a darkness seemed to wax upon them, heavy and monotonous. Eilwen wondered what the darkness was that grew and spread from High Crag. As they approached the settlement, strangers gave them suspicious looks and slammed their doors, shuttering windows. Some of them gaped at the small wyvern who scampered next to Eilwen, and she saw men grabbing bows, fitting arrows, and some even grabbing spears. So all of this with Scratch and with the townsfolk here acting the way they are towards the newcomers is part of the complication that is befalling them as a result of their weak hit on the End the Journey move. We shall see what happens. "Nice place," Aaron muttered. "I told you your little pet would cause problems." "It's more than just that. They're on edge about something else," Valeri muttered. "It's the same feeling I had near High Crag. Just not as bad, but..." Her voice trailed off. "What is it?" Eilwen asked. "Well, it's worse than it was 5 days ago when I was here. I think whatever it is that's causing this, it's spreading." "Well, that sight-blinded little beast isn't helping." Aaron sputtered a curse when he almost tripped over Scratch, who had gotten underfoot and was testing the air with his nose. "Idiot beast," Aaron growled and kicked at the creature to get him out of his way. Does he connect with kicking Scratch? 50-50 chance, and on a 6, I get a yes, but... He knocked Scratch aside and gave a satisfied smirk when the little creature sprawled into a food vending cart, but frowned when the food spilled out. In a single motion, Scratch's neck snaked down and snatched up some of the food and gulped it down. The cart's owner shouted at them, gave a rude gesture, and in a huff packed up what was left of his wares and turned down a different street. Scratch narrowed his eyes, focusing on Aaron, his rump moving back and forth, hissing and baring his teeth. "What? "You want to have a go at me?" Aaron said, and started to pull out his weapon. "I'd welcome it. Come on, you little runt. I'd love to split your—" Eilwen cursed and stepped between them. "Calm down," she said. "You're not like this. You're getting him riled up." "Me? Your little demon lizard started it." "Leave it," she said, grabbing her brother's arm and shoving him away from Scratch, who hopped after Aaron, hissing and spitting. "You too." She turned and snapped at Scratch. He hissed back at her and snapped at the air with a click of sharp teeth. Eventually, however, he calmed somewhat, though he and Aaron kept darting surly looks at each other as they moved through the streets of Longfalls. "Come on, let's see if we can find lodging," Eilwen said, studying Valeri and her tired children. It hadn't been an easy hike for the girls, but they had done it with minimal complaining. "It's not going to be an easy feat, lass," Seath said, noting a scowl from a local who shoved a door shut and locked it, spear in hand. Is there an inn-like building? On a 50-50 chance, I get a 6. Yes, but there's no room in the inn. Classic. Are there refugees from High Crag? I think that is likely, and on an 8, I get a yes. They approached a set of large buildings with thatched roofs, but some workers bearing truncheons waved them on, scowls on their faces. Besides, they could tell from the crowd spilling out onto the street that the place was bursting at the seams. Eilwen spotted a stable on the outskirts of town and led them to that. It smelled thick of sweaty horses, hay, and manure. She approached the stable hand, a balding man with a blunt nose of middle years and a half-gray, half-red beard that tumbled down from his chin into his tunic. "Could we and this family spend the night in the stables?" Eilwen motioned to Valeri and her children. "We'd be happy to work in payment for our stay." Okay, this is a sojourn move. We are rolling plus heart. Eilwen's heart is not very good. She only has a 1 in that. I rolled a 2 on the action dice, plus 1 is a 3, against a 8 and a 4 on the challenge dice. For a miss. On a miss, you find no help here. Pay the price. Failure count moves up to 8 out of 24. Alright, I'm going to roll on the table at the bottom of the pay the price move, and I rolled an 86. It wastes resources. "Now you be gone from here!" The balding man cursed at them and raised his pitchfork and charged at her, intent on chasing her out of the stables. Eilwen backpedaled, her hands raised defensively, and didn't see a small beggar child who had gotten underfoot. She tripped and fell backwards onto her rump, her small pack coming open in the fall, small bundles of food spilling out onto the street, only to be snatched up by children, who quickly disappeared down side streets. Aaron and Seath chased after them, but only managed to catch one of the little thieves. But after seeing the young girl's hollow face and her trembling form, a mixture of want, fear, need, the food half-eaten clenched in a tight white fist, the small bulging mouth slowly moving up and down, they let her go. Okay, that's -1 supply. Supply is now at 3 out of 5. "Knights beneath!" Eilwen cursed at the child's departing back and quickly gathered up the rest of their supplies. She, Aaron, and Seath now kept hands on their weapons and considered their options. The unfriendly settlement limited those considerably. They weren't the only ones turned away and experiencing difficulty, though. She saw streams of people, despondent looks on haunted, ashen faces, being turned aside from other dwellings. Other travelers shunned them, giving signs against evil and slamming doors in desperate faces. "From High Crag," Valeri noted to one tired family. "I saw travelers with that look before." Eilwen approached the family, a father and 2 young children. She didn't see a woman. The man barely seemed to notice her when she approached. His eyes passed over her wearily. "Please," she said, "I'm just trying to understand what happened to High Crag. I understand you're from there?" Okay, this sounds like a gather information move. So we are rolling plus wits. I rolled a 5 on the action dice. Plus 2 is a 7 against a 7 and a 4 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. On a weak hit, I add plus 1 to my momentum. Momentum is now 2 out of 10. The information complicates my quest or introduces a new danger. Our leader, an iron priest, he spat on the ground. A man named Delos. He visited one of those pillars, and now foul magics have polluted the land. Animals and people are dying, everyone on edge and mistrustful. Death stalks the land. He blinked and scrubbed at his face. We lost everything. Daddy, I want Mommy. A young girl hung on his hand, and he held an even younger one, a small boy in his arms who squirmed restlessly, crying, Mama, Mama. I know, he muttered, but Mother won't be coming. What happened to her? Eilwen asked. Death claimed her. How did she die? But the man just shook his head and swallowed hard, looking at the ground, blinking quickly. The poor man and children looked as if they didn't have much food or much of anything by way of supplies. Eilwen swung off her pack and dug out a package of food and some hard bread, handing it over to them. It's the least I can do, she said. I will subtract 1 supply for this, since it makes sense that it would be a sacrifice to do this. Supply is now down to 2 out of 5. Thank you, the man said, his voice raw with emotion, eyes bright with gratitude. Thank you. I don't know what to say. No one else would help, and... His voice trailed off as he knelt down and began doling out the food to his children. Erin grimaced at Eilwen, but said nothing. She pursed her lips. Around them she heard whispered conversations of Highcrag, of Delos, the Iron Priest. It's the least, but it's not the most I can do, she said half to herself. With sudden conviction, she drew out her sword and leaped atop a wagon. What in the Knight's own hells are you doing? Erin asked, his face alarmed. She ignored him, tilted her chin up proudly, and felt the breeze catch wisps of her hair. Hearken, people of Longfalls, she shouted, the sword point spearing the sky. Hearken and hear what I, Eilwen of Frostbridge, swear to do. The crowd around her had silenced, and she could sense Erin's eyes on her as she heard him groan. By the iron of this blade, I vow that I'll see Delos of Highcrag dealt with, and his foul magics that have caused the darkness of Highcrag riven asunder. An energy thrummed about her, and the very air seemed to shimmer. The man she had been talking to looked up at her, his eyes wide with awe or fear. He fell to his knees. Okay, this is swear an iron vow. I think it is actually a troublesome vow, because I think it's rather straightforward. Travel to the next settlement over. It's not very far. It's a known route, and confront Delos and smack him upside the head, though there's likely more to it than that. Let's see. I rolled a 4 on the action dice, plus 1 for her heart. It's a 5 against a 5 and a 7. Great. For another miss. Miscount goes up to 9 out of 24. On a miss, you face a significant obstacle. Before you can begin your quest, envision what stands in your way. Ask the Oracle if unsure and choose one. You press on, suffer -2 momentum, and do what you must to overcome this obstacle. Or you give up and forsake your vow. I will take the momentum loss. Momentum is now 0 out of 10. Is the obstacle Erin? I think there's a 50-50 chance, but on a 5 I get a no, but... No, but Erin's obviously not happy about her choice. Is it Scratch? 50-50 chance. Again, another 5, another no, but... No, but the people don't like the little beast causing havoc in their settlement either. What in the seven pits was that about? Erin hissed, grabbing her arm, but she couldn't stop the binding effect of the sworn vow. He felt the warmth traveling from iron into her hand and into his own. He snatched his hand back as if burned, his eyes flashing, shifting to her sword, then back to lock onto her own face. Doing what must be done. She raised her chin, the sword now point down on the wagon. I'll see to this, Delos in High Crag. But you... Erin's retort was cut off by a sudden shout.
Hey!
A large muscled man dressed in strange clothes held an equally large two-handed iron mace. The heavy head of the weapon rested in the dirt. The dark hood of his cloak cast his face into shadow. The locals gave him a wide berth, and a clearing in the crowd formed about him and the new strangers. Strange streamers of gray cloth were sewn into the sleeves of his cloak and snapped and fluttered in the breeze. You have spoken violence against Delos, the High One, he muttered darkly, a harsh accent scraping the air. So this is an acolyte of Delos. Are there others like him? I think there's a 50-50 chance there are others. And on a 10, I get a yes and. Great. I'll say that there are 3 additional lesser acolytes that are with him. Is the crowd hostile towards these acolytes? There's a 50-50 chance. But on a 2, the oracle says no. 3 others, similarly dressed, but smaller and with more slender builds, bearing spears, pushed through the crowd to stand behind him. The price for such is death, he said in a low, gravelly voice, and strode forward. All right, before we hit the outro, I wanted to share a special review comment. This comes from a fellow creator on the Solo Roleplayers Network. Some of you may have heard of that tiny, small, puny little show known as Tale of the Manticore. Rest assured that that was all tongue-in-cheek. The great John Cohen himself is the creator of what I consider the creme de la creme of this rather niche hobby of creating podcasts from solo role-playing games. Anyway, a few months into my podcast journey, John reached out to me by email to invite me to be a guest voice actor on his show for a small part. And in the course of that conversation, he wrote, "Hey Jared, I'm working through Queen of Shadows quickly and really liking what you bring to the table." And in a later email, he wrote, "And if I haven't said it before, you've got a hell of a voice." Then about a month after, we were in conversation about something else, and he wrote, "I notice you're still just available on Spotify. Any plans to broaden your availability? Your show is too good to be hard to find, dude." I was still then a rather wet behind the ears neophyte at all of this. But it led to further discussions where John proceeded to give me some needed advice. And this is honestly one of the things I love about the Solo Roleplayers Network, is their willingness to help each other succeed. So those comments meant a lot to me and continue to inspire me to keep doing this. So thank you, John, and keep up the wonderful work on your own show. So folks, if you haven't checked out John's show, The Tale of the Manticore, you are doing yourself a disservice. The storycraft, voice acting, narration, music, all of it is top-notch. You can find links to his show as well as other similar shows on the Solo Roleplayers Network at soloroleplayersnetwork.com. All right, that's it, folks. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed what you experienced. If you would like to support Roll, Ponder, and Play, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give the show a positive review on your podcatcher of choice. You can share the show with your friends and family and on your socials. Nothing beats word of mouth as a way to bring in new listeners. You can join my Patreon at patreon.com/rollponderandplay. There you can find show notes and transcripts, as well as other projects I'm involved in. And paid subscribers get access to subscriber-only episodes, shows, and other content. Finally, you can simply reach out to me and say hello. Comments from you are what inspire me to keep doing this, and I'd sincerely love to hear what you think of the show. To do so, you can find me on my Patreon, or on Discord at Roll, Ponder, and Play, or by email at rollponderandplay@gmail.com. Until we meet again on Roll, Ponder, and Play, may your own dice rolls ever bring you success.